You look beautiful in white, Adana. But does your husband-to-be know the last time you wore this color? It wasn't for a wedding. The room fell silent. The clinking of glasses, the murmured conversations, all ceased in an instant. Adana's fingers clenched around her bouquet, her knuckles turning white. The groom, Chief Emeka, shifted uncomfortably, his once confident stance wavering. The woman speaking sat calmly beside Kelechi Okafor, the billionaire whose presence alone had already stolen the attention of the entire hall. But now all eyes were on her, the barefoot woman in a faded Ankara dress, her tone both casual and cutting. You were wearing white when you made a promise to another man, weren't you? She continued, tilting her head slightly. Under the old Irako tree behind St. Matthew's Church. Do you remember, Adana? Because he does. A murmur rippled through the hall. Some guests exchanged confused glances. Others leaned in, eager for more. Kelechi watched as Adana's lips parted, but no words came out. The color had drained from her face. The groom's fingers trembled slightly, the champagne flute in his hand reflecting the golden chandeliers above. The woman chuckled softly, her voice almost teasing. Oh, don't worry, I'm just getting started. Kelechi Okafor sat in his dimly lit penthouse, staring at the untouched glass of whiskey in front of him. The city of Lagos stretched beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows, its lights twinkling like stars trapped on Earth. Yet, despite the luxury surrounding him, his mind was fixated on one thing, the wedding invitation that lay open on his marble table. Mr. and Mrs. Ifani invite you to the wedding of their daughter, Adana Ifani, and Chief Emeka Nwosu. He didn't need to read further. The words were already burned into his mind. Adana Ifani, the woman he had once loved, the woman who had promised forever, until she found something better. His fingers tightened around the glass, but he didn't take a sip. Drinking wouldn't fix this. Neither would anger. Adana had always been ambitious, but he never thought she'd leave him for power. He had given her everything, love, security, a future. But apparently that wasn't enough. She wanted a shortcut to the top, and Chief Emeka, a man nearly twice her age but infinitely wealthier, had been the answer. Kelechi exhaled sharply, pushing the glass away. He wouldn't give her the satisfaction of knowing she had broken him. If anything, he needed to remind her that she had lost something far greater than she had gained. His phone buzzed. It was a message from his best friend, Tund. Bro, you see the invitation? Forget her, man. She's old news. Old news. If only it were that easy. Another message followed. If you're going, go with someone that'll make her regret ever leaving you. Make a statement. Kelechi scoffed. Make a statement? With who? He had dated since Adana, but no one serious. No one worth taking to a wedding where eyes would be watching, waiting for a reaction. Still, the idea lingered. If he was going, he wasn't going alone. And that was when fate decided to play its hand. Later that night, while driving through the streets of Victoria Island, he stopped at a red light. A figure caught his eye. A woman, barefoot, wearing a faded Ankara dress, sitting by the roadside. Her hair was unkempt, and her face was partially hidden by shadows. She was just another homeless person. But then she turned her head, and she smiled at him. It wasn't the desperate smile of someone begging for help. It was knowing, amused, almost like she had been expecting him. Kelechi frowned but rolled down his window. You need something? The woman tilted her head, studying him. Then, in a voice far too steady for someone in her position, she said, No, but you do. Something about her tone made the air in the car feel heavier. Kelechi almost laughed. And what exactly do I need? She leaned closer. Revenge. The light turned green, but Kelechi didn't move. How did she know? And more importantly, who was she, the woman on the streets? Kelechi's grip tightened on the steering wheel, his mind racing. He should have driven off the moment the light turned green. He should have ignored her. But something about the woman, her calmness, her eerie confidence, made it impossible to leave. He exhaled sharply and leaned slightly toward the window. What did you just say? The woman smiled again, slow and knowing. I said, you need revenge. Kelechi's jaw clenched. He didn't like games. You don't know me, don't I? She folded her arms and leaned against the car door as if she belonged there. You're Kelechi Okafor, billionaire, successful businessman, but right now none of that matters. Because the woman you once loved is getting married to another man, and you hate that. A chill crawled down his spine. He had never seen her before, never spoken to her. Yet she was peeling through his emotions like she had known him forever. Kelechi narrowed his eyes. Who are you? The woman chuckled, brushing off the question like it didn't matter. I know things, Mr. Okafor. I know that Adana isn't as happy as she wants the world to believe. I know that Chief Emeka has secrets, dark ones. And I know, she paused, holding his gaze, I know you're looking for a way to remind Adana of what she threw away. His chest rose and fell steadily. And how would you know all this? The woman straightened, her eyes gleaming with something unreadable. Because people like me see everything. The streets have ears, Kelechi. Secrets don't stay buried forever. For a long moment he said nothing. A part of him wanted to dismiss her as just another street dweller with a gift for making up stories. But another part, one he couldn't shake, told him she wasn't lying. He drummed his fingers against the steering wheel, then sighed. All right, say I believe you. What exactly are you offering? The woman smiled. Take me to the wedding. Kelechi let out a dry laugh. You? To the biggest society wedding of the year. You do realize you're... He stopped himself, but she finished the sentence for him. Homeless. She smirked. Yes, I know. He shook his head. Why would I take you? Because I can give you something no one else can. She leaned in slightly. I can make sure this wedding is unforgettable. I can make sure Adana regrets ever leaving you. But more importantly, she paused, her voice dropping lower, I can show you the truth. Kelechi's pulse quickened. He wasn't sure why, but he believed her. Fine, he said finally. I'll take you to the wedding. The woman's smile widened. Good, she said. Now let's begin. Adana Ifani sat before her vanity mirror, staring at the flawless reflection that gazed back at her. Her makeup was light but elegant. Her diamond earrings sparkled under the golden lights of her bedroom, and the engagement ring on her finger, massive and dazzling, symbolized everything she had ever wanted. Power, status, wealth. In just a few days, she would become Mrs. Adana Nwosu, wife of Chief Emeka Nwosu, one of the richest and most influential men in Lagos. Everything was perfect. Or at least, that's what she kept telling herself. She reached for the bottle of perfume on her dresser, but her hands trembled slightly. With a sigh, she closed her eyes, steadying her breath. Why was she feeling this way? This was supposed to be the happiest time of her life. Maybe it was the nightmares. Lately, they had become more frequent. Strange, haunting dreams that made no sense. Whispers in the dark. A faceless figure watching her. Laughter that sent chills down her spine. And worst of all, the dream of a man beneath the iroko tree, calling her name. She shook her head. It's just nerves. A soft knock on the door snapped her out of her thoughts. Come in, she called, adjusting her silk robe. Her best friend, Cynthia, stepped inside, her face glowing with excitement. Baby, the wedding is almost here. Are you ready to be the most talked about bride in Lagos? Adana forced a smile. Of course, everything is set. Cynthia flopped onto the bed, crossing her legs. Girl, you hit the jackpot with Chief Emeka. That man is rich, powerful, and obsessed with you. Do you know how many women would kill to be in your position? Adana laughed softly, but something about Cynthia's words unsettled her. Obsessed. Chief Emeka was many things. Charming, generous, intelligent. But there were moments when his grip on her arm was just a little too tight, when his gaze felt too possessive, when his words carried an unspoken warning. She quickly pushed the thoughts away. This was the life she had chosen, the life she had worked for. She couldn't afford doubt now. Cynthia grinned. By the way, guess who accepted the invitation? Adana raised a brow. Who? Cynthia leaned forward, eyes sparkling with gossip. Kelechi Okafor. Adana's heart stopped. Kelechi, he was coming? Her throat went dry. She had expected him to ignore the invitation, to pretend she no longer existed. But if he was coming, why? She forced a neutral expression. So? It's a free country. Cynthia laughed. Come on, you know this is juicy. Everyone will be watching to see how he reacts. I mean, you dumped him for a big man. He's probably coming to prove he doesn't care. Adana gave a small smile, but inside, her mind was spinning. Kelechi wasn't the type to attend a wedding just to watch. If he was coming, he had a reason. And for the first time in weeks, a sense of unease settled deep in her chest. Chief Emeka Nwosu stood in his study, a glass of cognac in one hand and a wedding invitation in the other. He had read it before. It was his own wedding after all, but something about this particular copy irritated him. It was the one addressed to Kelechi Okafor. He exhaled slowly, placing the glass down on the table before glancing at the man standing across from him. It was his personal assistant, Chidi, sharp-eyed, discreet, and always aware of the unspoken tensions in a room. Has he responded? Emeka asked, his voice controlled but firm. Chidi hesitated for a second before nodding. Yes, sir. Kelechi Okafor has accepted the invitation. Emeka's jaw clenched. He had expected Kelechi to decline, to avoid the humiliation of watching his ex-fiancée marry someone else. But instead, he was coming. Why? His mind ran through the possibilities. Was Kelechi still in love with Adana? Was he coming to make a scene? Or worse, was this his way of challenging Emeka's place in her life? Chidi cleared his throat carefully. Should I arrange for extra security, sir? Emeka smirked, swirling the cognac in his glass. That won't be necessary. Kelechi Okafor is no fool. He won't dare to ruin Adana's wedding in front of Lagos' most powerful men. He knows the consequences. Still, something didn't sit right with him. Kelechi had always been a man of pride, but he was also calculating. He wouldn't attend the wedding just to watch Adana slip through his fingers. No, he had a reason, and Emeka intended to find out what it was. Meanwhile, across Lagos, Kelechi sat in his office, staring at the confirmation email. Your RSVP has been received. We look forward to welcoming you to the wedding of Adana Afani and Chief Emeka Nwosu. He leaned back in his chair, exhaling. The decision had been made. There was no turning back now. At the other end of the room, the homeless woman sat comfortably on his leather couch, sipping a bottle of water like she belonged there. She had introduced herself as Amara, though something told him that wasn't her real name. You seem nervous, Amara said, watching him. Kelechi scoffed. I just agreed to attend my ex's wedding with a woman I barely know. Nervous is an understatement. Amara chuckled, tilting her head. Good. That means you understand what's at stake. He studied her for a moment. There was something unsettling about her, but not in a dangerous way. She spoke like she knew things she shouldn't, like she could see through people. Tell me something, he said. How do you know so much about Adana and Emeka? Amara's smile faded slightly. She placed the water bottle down and leaned forward. Because I've been watching, listening. The wealthy think their secrets are safe, but Lagos whispers them to those who know how to listen. Kelechi's fingers drummed against his desk. And what exactly do you plan to do at the wedding? Amara's eyes gleamed. That depends on how much truth you can handle. For the first time, Kelechi felt a flicker of uncertainty. He had wanted to make a statement, to remind Adana that he wasn't a man to be discarded. But with Amara involved, this was turning into something else. Something far bigger. Something that could change everything. The days leading up to the wedding passed in a blur of luxury, extravagance, and carefully crafted perfection. Every detail had been planned down to the last flower petal. Adana's dress was being flown in from Paris. The guest list read like a who's who of Nigerian elites, and the media was buzzing with excitement. But beneath all the glamour, an unshakable feeling of unease lingered. Adana sat in her bridal suite, watching as the wedding planners bustled around her, adjusting decorations and finalizing seating arrangements. Cynthia sat beside her, scrolling through Instagram. Girl, look at all these posts about your wedding. Cynthia giggled. turning her phone toward Adana. You're officially the most envied woman in Lagos. Adana forced a smile, glancing at the screen. There it was, pictures of her and Chief Emeka, headlines praising their perfect love story, speculation about her dress, their honeymoon destination, the massive bride price Emeka had paid. Everything looked perfect. But why didn't it feel that way? Her mind drifted back to Kelechi. Why had he accepted the invitation? Cynthia must have noticed her distracted expression because she nudged her playfully. You're thinking about him, aren't you? Adana tensed. Who? Cynthia rolled her eyes. Kelechi. Don't lie, babe. I saw your face change the moment I mentioned the wedding hype. You're wondering why he's coming. Adana exhaled sharply. It doesn't matter. He's my past. Then why do you look like you've seen a ghost every time someone mentions his name? Cynthia smirked. Do you think he's coming to stop the wedding? Adana frowned. Kelechi isn't foolish. He won't cause a scene. Maybe not, Cynthia mused. But something tells me this wedding won't go as smoothly as you think. Adana didn't like the way that sounded. Cross town, Kelechi adjusted his cufflinks in the mirror, barely recognizing the man staring back at him. He was usually confident, self-assured, always in control. But right now he felt like a man about to walk into a battlefield. Amara sat on the couch behind him, watching him with that unsettling, knowing gaze. Are you ready? She asked. Kelechi turned to face her. Tell me again why I'm doing this. Amara leaned forward, her fingers tapping rhythmically against the armrest. Because you need closure. Because you want Adana to see what she lost. And because, deep down, you know something about this wedding isn't right. Kelechi's jaw tightened. He hated how easily she read him. Amara stood and walked toward him, her bare feet making no sound against the polished floors. You still don't trust me, she murmured, tilting her head. That's fine. But by the end of tomorrow you'll realize something. And what's that? Her lips curled into a small smile. I'm not the one you should be afraid of. A shiver ran down Kelechi's spine, though he wasn't sure why. Amara turned away, picking up a small mirror and examining herself. Now let's get ready. We have a wedding to attend. The day of the wedding arrived with the kind of grandeur that only the wealthy could afford. The venue, an extravagant five-star hotel in Victoria Island, was decorated like something out of a fairy tale. Crystal chandeliers sparkled, imported roses lined the aisles, and the air was thick with expensive perfume and the chatter of Lagos elite. Photographers and journalists swarmed outside, eager to capture every moment of what was being called the wedding of the year. Guests arrived in luxury cars, dressed in designer outfits, each hoping to outshine the next. Inside, Chief Emeka stood near the altar, surrounded by influential politicians and businessmen, shaking hands and exchanging pleasantries. He was the picture of confidence, a man who had it all. But beneath his calm exterior, a storm brewed. He kept glancing at the entrance, his fingers tapping impatiently against his thigh. Where was Kelechi? He had been expecting his rival to make a quiet, unremarkable entrance, maybe slip into the crowd and pretend not to care. But Kelechi was nowhere to be seen. For a moment, Emeka wondered if he had changed his mind, if he had chosen to avoid the embarrassment of watching his ex marry a more powerful man. Then the doors opened, and all eyes turned. A show-stopping arrival. A hush fell over the crowd as Kelechi Okafor walked in. But it wasn't just him. It was who was beside him that made everyone stare. Amara. Gone was the barefoot woman in ragged Ankara. She was transformed. She wore a stunning emerald green gown that clung to her curves, the fabric shimmering with every step she took. Her hair was sleek and styled, her makeup flawless, and the confidence in her posture made it impossible to look away. Gasps and whispers filled the hall. Who is she? Is that Kelechi's new woman? She looks like royalty. Even the journalists lowered their cameras for a second, stunned by the mysterious beauty who had arrived with one of Lagos' most eligible bachelors. Adana, standing in the bridal suite upstairs, peered through a small window overlooking the hall. Her breath hitched when she saw Kelechi. She had expected him to look bitter, heartbroken. Instead, he looked better than ever. And the woman beside him, Adana's hands clenched into fists. Who was she? Beside her, Cynthia let out a low whistle. Damn, babe. If you were hoping Kelechi would show up looking miserable, you just got your answer. Adana swallowed hard, forcing herself to breathe. It doesn't matter. But it did. It mattered more than she wanted to admit. And as Kelechi walked confidently down the aisle with Amara by his side, Adana realized something. This wedding was about to become something no one would ever forget. The atmosphere in the wedding hall had shifted. What was meant to be a celebration now felt like a carefully contained storm, ready to explode. The moment Kelechi and Amara stepped in, conversations dimmed, whispers grew louder, and all eyes turned to Adana. She sat beside her father, dressed in her breathtaking white gown. But for the first time today, she felt powerless. Kelechi's presence alone was enough to rattle her. But that woman beside him? The one who looked like she had stepped straight out of a royal dynasty? Adana had no idea who she was, but something about her felt wrong. Cynthia nudged her. Babe, you have to stay calm. If you let them see that they're getting to you, they win. Adana swallowed hard, pasting a polite smile on her face. But inside,